like to start the presentation of the results of our survey. We do this survey every year in late autumn among those 700 Austrian subsidiaries that we have in our database. So we don't have all 1,000. And last year in autumn, 55 subsidiaries responded and filled in our questionnaire. But before we start to speak about the results of the survey, let's have a short look at the importance of the bilateral economic relations between Austria and Slovenia. So the economies of our two countries are interconnected very, very closely. Last year, imports and exports increased very strongly, and not only because of inflation, that was in real terms. So we can say that last year we had about 8.2 billion euros of trading volume in goods and services. And if we just look at the imports of goods and services from Austria, per capita, Slovenia imports more than 2,200 euro from Austria, which makes Slovenia the most important customer from Austria if you speak about per capita figures. I already mentioned that Austria is the biggest investor country in Slovenia with roughly 25% of all FDI, which is 4.6 billion. There are more than 1,000 subsidiaries in Austria. They employ more than 20,000 people. Plus we have about 25,000 people, especially in the eastern part of Slovenia, who commute to Austria every day or once a week to work in Austria because they have a job there. We have here just a couple of logos of Austrian companies in Slovenia. You already have got this presentation, and also our two companies of today, Boxmark and Vitronic, are among these companies. Let's speak about our survey. As I mentioned, 700 companies received the invitation to participate, and 55 responded. If we look at the participant profile, we cover, let's say, the main activities of the economy. We had about 44% of the respondents, they are service providers, 36% have a local production facility in Slovenia to produce products, and 20% are distributors of products from Austria. And if we, so this is almost same shares. And if we look at the size of the companies, we have here a pie chart which shows that about 2/3 of the companies have a turnover of more than 10 million euro per year, and about 1/3 are smaller companies who participated. Question 2, from your company's perspective, how would you characterize the current economic climate and state of the economy in Slovenia? So we asked the companies about their opinion regarding 2022, and as you see, about 50% of the companies said that the situation was stable. 35% said that the situation had worsened, and only for 18% the situation had improved. But if we now look at their perspective for this year, 2023, we see that the situation actually deteriorates. So the expectations of the companies, because now about 2/3 of the companies expect that the economic climate and the state of the economy will worsen. Only 30% say the situation will stay the same, and only 5% say that it will improve. So this, of course, is also one effect of the COVID pandemic, there are some companies whose business actually has improved, but most companies actually suffer from the consequences of the pandemic. Looking at your company's performance in Slovenia, how would you assess the indicators listed below? So again, we asked about the past 12 months, which is last year, and the upcoming 12 months. And let's start with the total turnover. So last year, economy was still booming after all, so we had a very strong economic growth. And this explains why almost 75% of the companies said that their turnover had increased, and only 9% said that it had decreased. But if we look at the same criterion, the turnover for 2023, we see that this shifts completely. Now it's about 45% of the companies, they are still optimistic that the turnover will remain the same, but the percentage of those who expect it to increase is maybe a third of last year, and let's say 25% instead of 9% expect that the turnover will decrease. According to the order, if you look at the order books, we have a very similar situation, of course. So last year the situation was still very positive. So for about 95% of the companies, the order books were in a very good situation, either increasing orders or stable situation, and only 10% said that the orders had gone down. But if we look at this year, again a strong shift. 43% expect that the orders will decrease, 38% say it will be stable, and only 18% are positive that the situation will improve. The same about the capacity utilization, of course. The workforce size, here again we see that the companies plan to hire less people. Of course, this is also according to the industry. In some industries, they are desperately looking for new co-workers and skilled workers. But altogether, we see that the companies will hire less people, and they will also decrease their investment. Looking at your experience in Slovenia, that's the next question. How would you assess the factors listed below? So here we have to say that almost for none of the question there was a high percentage of respondents saying very well. For instance, political stability. Well, if we look at the respondents who say the political stability is very good or rather good, we still have about 2/3 of the companies, but the percentage of those who are unhappy is still quite strong. This has of course to do with the change of the government, and this is a shift from center-right government to rather center-left government. Of course, this means changes for the companies, and therefore the percentage of those who say that the political stability is not very good, that has increased a bit. Predictable economic policy. Here, the number of respondents who say that this is rather bad or very bad is quite strong. It's more than 50%. If we speak about legal certainty, still 2/3 of the companies have a positive picture of that, but 27% of the companies are skeptical, and almost 4% very skeptical. About bureaucracy, there's even more skepticism. This is a real problem. So I think that here our CEOs can tell more, because we rather know the statistics, but I have not a precise idea how bad bureaucracy in companies actually is, but it seems to be a very strong problem also for the Austrian subsidiaries. Employment law, here it's about 50-50, the degree of satisfaction, but the companies of course see that the new government introduces measures that are more in favor of the employees than for the employers. Public procurement law, well, this is the satisfaction is still there, and I would say that this is an important aspect if we bear in mind that there will be EU funds from the Recovery and Resilience Fund of the EU, and so there will be more tenders in the future. And so here actually it's very important for the companies that they have equal chances to get the orders. Companies are not very satisfied with the tax situation. Well, who likes to pay taxes? Nobody, of course. But we can read more reports in the media now that even Slovenian companies are very unsatisfied and consider relocation towards southeast of Europe. Public subsidies, this is also a point where a lot of Austrian companies are not very satisfied. Well, basically, Slovenia has a lot of strong points that are reasons why to have a company here in the country, but some companies, bigger companies, have made a very bad experience with subsidies granted by Spirit, as they did not fulfill the criterion to employ a certain number of people until a certain date. They actually had to pay back quite substantial subsidies, which is not great for the business location, I would say. And fighting crime and corruption. This is for me quite a surprising feedback, because for me Slovenia is a very well-developed country and part of Central Europe, and still more than half of the respondents can see that there is a problem with corruption. Another list of questions that we asked the Austrian subsidiaries is how they assess the following factors. First of all, infrastructure. Well, this gets a very good feedback. The roads, the railroads, the Port of Koper, of course, and the internet. So here there is nothing bad to say, I would say. Same for digitalization. Here, Slovenia certainly is a front runner in Europe. Labor costs is, of course, a problem. Slovenia is still attractive, but obviously it depends a lot on the industry, whether the wages are competitive or not. Availability of qualified labor force. Here again, Slovenia is in the same situation as most other countries in Europe. It looks quite bad for some industries and might be a major obstacle for future FDI. We point out again that the new government has not taken many steps to breathe life into the implementation of the Vocational Training Act. So this is a law from 2017, which actually was also influenced by our office, by Advantage Austria, and by the German Slovenian Chamber. This is about the training of the young people, the vocational training. We have this dual system in Germany, Austria, and in Switzerland. And we have tried several times to help Slovenia introduce a similar system for the training of young skilled workers aged 16 to 19. So I would say the Slovenian government should be more aware of the importance of the training of the young people, to give them an alternative to go to university. And the government should, let's say, also make a campaign on social and traditional media to boost the popularity of craft professions, because that's what the Slovenian industry needs. The availability of capital and credit is not a problem for the Austrian subsidiaries. Obviously, their financial situation is pretty sound. Then we have at least 3 factors which are really strong points for Slovenia and decisive factors to have a company here. That's the quality of the local suppliers, the availability of local suppliers, and the last point, the value attached to quality. Here Slovenia definitely is exceptional, and this makes it very good for Austrian companies to cooperate with Slovenian companies. The cost of raw materials mostly is not a factor that can be influenced much by Slovenia. If these are world market prices for raw materials, of course this is and energy, this is something that is a problem throughout Central Europe. It's not just a problem here in Slovenia. The turbulences in the supply chains are a problem for all countries and all companies. Well, the business payment practices are also very positive, and of course the purchasing power in Slovenia is quite high, and is not only a reason to invest in Slovenia for the operators of the big shopping centers like Supernova and SES, which is part of the Spar group. So altogether, there are some critical points that have remained the same for the last years. So we have a very good situation and a high satisfaction of the Austrian subsidiaries concerning the infrastructure and digitalization, the quality that is provided by Slovenian companies, the value attached to quality, and the availability of credit and capital. But reform is still needed in the areas of bureaucracy, the availability of qualified workforce, the cost of raw materials, and of course taxes and customs duties. What measures is your company taking to fight the lack of skilled workers? Well, 62% of the surveyed companies do suffer problems with the lack of skilled workers. So most companies invest more in the in-house training and the requalification of their employees, almost 90%. Well, as there is a very strong competition now between companies to attract skilled workers, about 73% of the companies have increased their salaries above the industry average, so to attract the workers. Then for 45% of the Austrian subsidiaries, the use of temporary workers is of relevance. So that is interesting. Obviously there's an up and down according to the orders. 27% also recruit skilled workers from abroad, but let's say for about 70% of the companies this is not relevant yet. Of course, automation and digitalization has become a strong topic, especially during the pandemic. So 84% of the companies really try hard to increase their degree of automation, but only a very, very small number of companies really think about relocating their business. So for 71%, it's no doubt this will stay in Slovenia, and the same for 22%, so altogether almost 90% have no idea and no intention to go away from Slovenia. And we also always ask the companies one important question: because this is an indicator for us to compare the situation over the years. This is, will Slovenia remain an interesting investment location for your company also in 2023? And this indicator has remained the same as last year. 78% of the Austrian subsidiaries would still invest in Slovenia, and only 22% would decide today that they would not invest here. And if we have a look at how this indicator has developed over the last 6 years, we've seen that before the pandemic it was the degree of satisfaction was higher, almost 90%. Now it's floating between 71 and 79%, but it's improving. And this has of course to do with the fact that due to the problems in the supply chains, companies have understood that it's of great value to be close to Austria, to benefit from nearshoring, and this is why Slovenia, with its strong points, remains a very important business location for Austria. We have also made a summary of the key messages for you. Just to sum up before I ask Mr. Trovisch and Mr. Waldhofer to tell you your point of view from the practice. Austrian investors in Slovenia are still satisfied with being located in Slovenia, but they are skeptical about the economic outlook. So both regarding the total turnover, orders and capacity utilization, they think that there will be a decline. But the commitment to Slovenia as a business location is high. I mentioned all the factors that are perceived positively, but bureaucracy, tax burden on companies, the lack of skilled workers and the cost of raw materials are really a critical point. And here we seriously ask the Slovenian government to take action and to be aware of the situation of the employers, because it's good to do something for the employees, but somewhere actually has to employ them. And so the situation for the companies definitely needs to be improved.
Maybe a question for you, Mr. Nest. Are there some new Austrian investments in the pipeline you are dealing with?
Well, we know that Supernova is in the process of adapting 3 further shopping centers. So their presence in Slovenia will be even stronger in the future. Well, you know that in Škofja Loka we have Knauf Insulation. They are going to replace some of the existing production facility and then also to enlarge it. I can report about 2 investments in the logistics business. A cargo partner has just opened the second stage of its logistics center a month ago, and we have Center Hoče. This is owned by Go Asset, and they will open their facility on Friday. So it's some that is in the pipeline. We have smaller ones, but also Magna still plans to increase its production facility here, because they have this project to assemble SUVs of the brand Fisker Ocean. So that actually should start this year, but obviously they lag a little bit behind. We've got some smaller brands. For instance, there is Senecura. They are operators of nursing homes, and they already have 3 of them in Radenci, Maribor and Vojnik, and they plan to build 7 more of them. So we have bigger and smaller Austrian investment that is in the pipeline. Let's say, as Austria's presence here is already very strong, of course the dynamics has decreased over the last years, and I would say that first the economic recovery has to begin, so that companies start to maybe invest into absolutely new facilities. It's rather, I would say, the existing companies, they invest into automation, digitalization, they maybe replace some of the older manufacturing lines because it's more efficient way nowadays to produce. So, but let's say there is still investment going on, but the influx of new companies has slightly decreased.
Magna is no good reputation in Slovenia. It's true.
Say it again.
Magna is not good reputation in Slovenia.
Let's say also as a result of the pandemic, the development of Magna as a company has been interrupted, which does not comply, of course, to the project and to the plans of the Magna management. But I'm convinced that when the economic situation improves in general and they can also solve the problems in the supply chain, they will reopen their facility in Hoče and be a very reliable and good employer again.